Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Celine. I hope everyone is well. For those of you that are new here, I am an intuitive healer, an empowerment coach and a spiritual guide. So in today's video, I want to talk a bit about spiritual intervention or divine intervention and what that actually looks like. So it's important to realise that a spiritual awakening is more like a conscious awakening in a sense. It's becoming aware of things that possibly we're already doing or that we're supposed to be doing. You know, like realising that we're here for a purpose and things like that. So if you are here for a spiritual purpose, as say a light worker, and you're here for a mission to do with what's going on right now, then you have probably found that you've been heavily guided throughout life, even if you didn't realise it. And I know that was certainly the case for me. I didn't realise, I didn't kind of have a conscious awakening to that until around 2016. And then I realised that there was lots of people like me. I was actually spiritual. The things I experienced were like gifts. The people I talked to in my head, or the person I talked to in my head and found guidance from, was like a spirit guide or my higher self. So, you know, that was always there. I just wasn't aware. It was kind of, you know, it was something that other people experience. So that's kind of something to keep in mind, really. So I have two examples I'm going to use today of divine intervention. One was when I first started to wake up, although I didn't realise at the time I was starting to wake up. And then on the second occasion, I was spiritually aware, and that went slightly different. So I'll go with the first one first. I was born into a family, as some of you will know, when I grew up within the SRA environment, the Illuminati and all that. I was trafficked all around the world, but I always felt like I had a sense of purpose, like I was an infiltrator in a way. It was kind of like I was born into it to learn all the ways. So, you know, I could, it also to give me strength as well for this time now and the experience. And I forgot where I was going with that now. But it was basically to prepare me for what was to come. And I always had that in the back of my mind. So obviously it was hard growing up in that. And there was times I was like, I can't do this anymore. And something just always gave me that strength to keep going. So anyway, we come up to 2012. And I started my awakening at that point, but I went into a dark night of the soul. So obviously I didn't realise what that was at the time. Everything around me had gone to shit. If you know about Jupiter returns, if you know a bit about astrology, this was also around my Jupiter return. So that's kind of why there was so much chaos as well. Although a lot of it was orchestrated because of the cult I was in. A lot of it was largely down to the spiritual as well. So as I say, I woke up and lots of things happened which I won't go into here. I ended up travelling and going away, and I went away for about 6 weeks. I had absolutely no money, but I had a car. I had enough to kind of leave where I was in the Isle of Man and go to England on the mainland. So I was travelling around England, all around England, random different places. I had no idea about where I was going. I was really lost. I was confused. I was in a really bad place. My kids had just been taken from me from my abusive ex, who I found out after was my handler, which I didn't realise at the time. I thought he was just a narcissist, but yeah, he was a lot more involved. So, you know, you can imagine what kind of state I was in, really. So I was just aimlessly driving around. I was sleeping in the car, you know, because I had no money to get anywhere or anything like that. And it wasn't until afterwards, when I got more into my awakening and more awake, that I realised that that was actually part of my purpose, that I'd been guided by spirit. So although it was seemingly random places, they were all places I'd been trafficked to as a child, and they were things I needed to remember. Because when I first started awakening in 2012, I had no idea about the childhood that I'd gone through and how bad it really was. I had no idea about the people involved. I'd had it completely locked down by the mind control. So I'd forgotten all of it. I'd forgotten I was here on a purpose, who I really am. You know, that connection was spiritual. I knew when I was a child it was. I just didn't when I was older. I just thought it was, I don't know really what I thought it was. And so yeah, I'd been guided to all these places. So it was to help. It was the build up to helping me remember my memories, which I needed to do to kind of heal from that, and also remember to know what I'm doing now for my purpose. So yeah, that was that one. Then about 3 or 4 years ago, I know actually it was 2019, my memories started coming back of the SRA by that point. So you could see I'd been on this journey for quite a while before that had kicked in. I was aware by that point that I was spiritually awake and awake to everything that was going on. I just wasn't awake to my part in it and my life prior. So that kind of kicked in around 2019. So then that set off an orchestrated set of events, which again was like seemingly random. I ended up leaving the Isle of Man once again, moving back to England, to yet another place that we'd been moved to by the police, because at this time we'd reported the historic abuse. So we didn't realise how high up it had gone then. We'd only remembered like bits of it, which was mostly family involved. So we got moved by police for our own protection to this town that it then, when we were walking around, we started remembering that actually we'd been there as kids. This was yet another place that, was involved in this. And then from there, me and my husband at the time had split up because of, family services and stuff getting involved, police. That really didn't go well, telling the police, because the police knew who we were, whereas we hadn't remembered at that point how high up it went for us. So we were immediately silenced. So we were split apart at that point. He now has the kids and I live on my own. But he stayed where he is, and I was made homeless at the time, randomly, out of nowhere. And I did have a flat, but because of events, tenancy agreements and stuff, it just ended up not happening. So I couldn't afford to stay where I was at the time, and I had to go and travel to see a friend. So that ended me in yet another place that was involved in this, like involved in the network, involved in where I was trafficked. And then eventually it got me brought down to further south, where I now live closer to Stephen. So if you were watching Stevie Forkbeard, so if you were watching the our podcast last night that we are now doing every week, it's Life Beneath the Veil, and we'll be sharing different stories like this and other aspects of the awakening, both in the matrix and spiritually, but we share both our stories. But yeah, as I was saying last night, I ended up moving a lot closer to him, and that was because we have a mission together. And I didn't realise that at the time. It was completely random again how I ended up down here. I had another friend that lived close by, and she was the one that encouraged me to move down and, be closer to her, which just happens to be the next town away from Stephen. So you can kind of see how it all plays out. But during that time when I was travelling up and down, there was a train you could get, and you could either go to York in Yorkshire, or you could come down the coast way. So if you went the York way, if you're from the UK, you might know this. If you come down the York way, it's a lot quicker than going the coastal way. So I'd always try and, well, not always, but sometimes I'd try and get that train, and it was always cancelled, or another time it just didn't turn up. and I would always end up on that coastal train, and it was because, again, there was another destination on that route that I needed to remember. As soon as I remembered that, it stopped. And it actually wasn't long after that, it was only really a couple of weeks, that I ended up moving and staying then in the south, so I didn't even have to do that journey anymore. And you know, that's an example of how divine intervention works. And I realised I'd done the trip about 5 times, and I'd been cancelled on this York one about 3 times. So I was like, right, there's something going on here. This isn't right. What is it, Spirit? What do you want me to see? So instead of sitting on my phone on the train, I decided to pay more attention, looking out the window. And that was when I saw what it was. So I won't bother going into detail about that because it doesn't really matter. But yeah, that's how crazy it was. And then, as I say, literally within a couple of weeks, I'd moved, and I don't have to do that journey now because I'd figured out what it was that Spirit was trying to show me. So these are the kind of things to look out for. You will be heavily guided, especially if you're on a spiritual path. Like if you signed up for what's happening now, it doesn't matter how much you try and branch off from, you know, your path, it will always bring you back somehow. And it's crazy how it can do it. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that experience. I kind of touched on it last night on the podcast, as I say, so I thought I'd explain that a bit more. So I will leave it there for that video. I hope it helped anyone that is kind of experiencing the similar things and wondering what the hell is going on. That's probably what it is, and try and, you know, sit quietly and talk to Spirit and see, you know, if you can kind of get some guidance on what they're trying to show you, basically. And yeah, so I will leave it there. I hope everyone is well. I will see you all in the next video. Enjoy your day.